Hello, fifth and sixth graders. I figured we'd have some northern lights in the background today as we go through science. We are going on to the next section on body systems. So we are on to skeletal system today. Last time we talked about your muscular system, your muscles that allow you to move, that hold everything together. Today we're going on to skeletal, which has to do with your bones. So we are on page 160, and let's learn a little bit about our skeleton. So some vocabulary before we start. Endoskeleton. Endoskeleton is the internal supporting framework of an animal or a human. If you have studied bugs before, you might have heard of an animal or a bug having an exoskeleton, meaning their bone structure or their hard parts of their body that hold them together is on the outside of their bodies rather than on the inside. We have an endoskeleton, which means all of our hardest, toughest parts are on the inside. Cartilage. Cartilage is the dense connective tissue that covers the ends of our bones in a joint. And your sternum is the breastbone located in the middle of your chest. So that's the bone that goes right down between your rib cages. All right. A building without a strong foundation and internal support beams inside its walls is unable to stand upright for very long, if at all. Just as a building needs a proper support structure, so does the body. In an adult, 206 bones form the jointed endoskeleton. With their attached muscles, these bones allow movements in many directions. They give the body stability. Additionally, the skeleton protects internal organs and tissue, produces blood cells in the bone marrow, and stores calcium and other minerals. Bone tissue in the body contains living cells. These allow your bones to grow, change shape, and repair themselves. During early developments, cartilage makes up most of the skeleton. As the body grows, the cartilage is replaced by bone in a process called ossification. It involves specialized cells that deposit calcium and other minerals into the bones. Although major growth stops soon after puberty, bone tissue is under maintenance throughout one's lifetime. It is continually being broken down and rebuilt by bone cells. So when if you've ever held a newborn or had a newborn brother or sister that's younger than you, your parents might say to be careful holding them, especially their head. They have a soft spot on their head. That's because bones, when you're born, are actually mostly cartilage. And so they're not hard like they are now for us because that calcium and other minerals hasn't been deposited into the bones yet. And so your bones, although they hold your structure together when you're born, they're pretty soft and pliable and bendable. And as you grow and as your body produces calcium and other minerals, those are distributed to your bones, which then hardens them in this process of ossification. In the field, the gray box at the bottom, doctors diagnose a rare but life-threatening disease called adult acute epiglottitis by testing the tenderness of the neck area that is in front of the thyroid bone. The human hyoid bone gives support to the tongue. Several muscles that are used in swallowing attach to the hyoid bone, which is U-shaped. It is the only bone in the body that does not connect to any other bone at a joint. So you've got a bone right around here that is not connected to any other bone by a joint that actually holds your tongue in place. So if you didn't have that bone there, you would swallow your tongue. You wouldn't be able to use it. And so that's pretty important. The knee joint is cushioned by cartilage called the meniscus. This image, taken through an arthroscope, shows a tear in the meniscus. Since it receives a very limited blood supply, the cartilage in the knee has limited potential to heal. And so if you've ever heard of someone, maybe your parents have had a knee surgery or an aunt or an uncle, your meniscus tends to be something that you tear doing sports, if you turn quickly a certain way, you can tear your meniscus, which is a ligament along the side of your knee that holds things together. And so a tear is something that has to be repaired, usually sewn or cauterized in order for that to work to its full potential. All right, the axial skeleton is the core part of the endoskeleton and protects the body's major organs. It consists of the 80 bones found in the head and trunk of the body. Not trunk like an elephant trunk, but trunk meaning your midsection, like from your neck to your hips. Specifically the skull, the vertebral column, and the rib cage. The skull is made up of the facial bones and the cranium. It protects the brain. The facial bones form jawbones, the nose, the cheeks, and the roof of the mouth. These support and house sense organs such as eyes, ears, and nose. The vertebral column is made up of 33 vertebrae and forms the curved backbone. It extends from the skull to the pelvis and serves as an attachment site for other skeletal bones. The vertebrae safeguard the spinal cord, which runs down and through the middle. A disc of cartilage located between each vertebrae prevents grinding of the bones and absorbs the shock by body's movements. The rib cage contains the sternum and 12 pairs of ribs. It provides a barrier for the vital organs such as the heart, liver, and lungs. So your backbone, you can see a picture on the side there, you have 33 vertebrae. And if your back was, we talked about this before, if your backbone was just a solid bone, you wouldn't have the movement that we are able to have. Because you have 33 separate bones that are connected by tissue and have little cushions in between, we are able to move in a way that we wouldn't be able to if you just had a stiff bone up your back. And if you don't have the cushion between, they're called discs, if you didn't have those between your vertebrae, those bones would rub against each other and would be really painful. And it works as like a shock absorber. So if you've ever been in a car that doesn't have very good shocks, if you were to go over a pothole or a bump, you can feel it like bang. And that's kind of what happens when you lose the cartilage between your discs or between your vertebrae. Those bones crash against each other if you're jumping, if you're moving, if you're turning, and that becomes very painful. The portion of the axial skeleton that attaches to the arms and legs are known as the girdles. The pectoral girdle consists of the shoulder bones, including the clavicle, while the pelvic girdle consists of your hip bones. So these are the bones that hold kind of your bones that are appendages to your trunk, so your arms and your legs that move freely but are attached to your main midsection or your trunk. Quick fact, believe it or not, giraffes and humans both have 7 cervical vertebrae or neck bones. Giraffes must be really big. In fact, most mammals have 7 no matter how long their neck. Exceptions include the manatee, my favorite, and the 2-toed sloth with 6, and the 3-toed sloth with 9 cervical vertebrae. So to think that a giraffe, who is known for its long neck, has the same amount of vertebrae in its neck as humans do. They just must be really big vertebrate bones. An infant skull has a soft spot that occurs because the cartilage has not fully hardened into bone. This allows for the skull to expand and develop normal shape as the brain grows. Wearing a helmet is the single most important thing a person can do to protect the brain while riding a bike. And so, like I said before, babies have a soft spot usually right around here on their head, and that allows for their brain to grow and expand. Now, if it was already hardened bone, it wouldn't have space to grow. And so you do hear of, there are rare cases where some kids are born with an already ossified brain or skull. And so they actually have to have surgery over a number of times to release that pressure, to open up the space for the brain to be able to grow. On the other hand, sometimes you have kids who their soft spot doesn't ossify, and so it stays soft, and their brain grows, and their head kind of becomes misshaped. So you might see little kids with helmets on all the time. Usually they're round and smooth, and they might be pink if it's for a girl or blue if it's for a boy, and that's to help shape their head because of the way their bones or the cartilage grew or continued to expand as they got bigger. And it's usually worn for a short period of time, and then as those bone plates in their head harden and go through ossification, then they can take the helmet off and go on with life. But it's amazing how God created us. They created babies. If you think when you're in your mom's tummy, you are like squished. And so you can't have solid bones at that point because you got to be pretty flexible in order to stay in that small space. And then as you grow, then your bones harden, you begin to walk, you begin to run, and God had a purpose and a process for the way our body develops, including with the bones. All right. So one thing that we didn't read on the page before, which skeletal bone of the body is the largest and the strongest? So think about that. Think about your whole body. And we talked about where the smallest bones are last time. If you remember, your smallest bones are actually in your ear. You have a series of little bones in your ear that allow you to hear correctly. But where is your largest bone in your body? We'll talk about that next time. So when we come back next time, we are going to go on to the nervous system, which has to do with all the messages being sent from your brain to the rest of your body. It has to do with sensing and feeling, but it also has to do with the way our organs run involuntarily by impulses sent by your brain. Pretty amazing. So that's all we have for today. We do not have a lab. If you want to go on YouTube onto the videos I sent your parents just to see a little bit more on body systems, you are welcome to do that. As always, check out the Magic School Bus or Bill Nye the Science Guy for some of their insight on this.